work is something that I do not get bored looking at. It's always something different, insanity that's being triggered. So it's definitely something I would want to take home. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm so excited to welcome our guest, Vancouver-based artist, Chrissy Cheung. Yes? Chrissy's work has been shown in more than 50 exhibitions across Canada, US, and abroad, with solo shows in both Toronto and Montreal. Originally from Toronto, she discovered her love for art when she was only 7, and later went on to study at Concordia University in Montreal, where she earned her Bachelor of Fine Arts. She also completed an art residency at Banff Center, which played a key role in shaping her practice. Now her paintings have been featured in Creators Vancouver, Richmond Senator, and Edmonton Journal, Scout Magazine, and even earlier in Akimbo, and the Now Magazine. Thank you. She also exhibited in art fairs in New York and Miami, and her work can be found in both public and private collections in Montreal and Richmond. Recently, Kevin was able to get a lot of her work into the Signature Mazda dealership in Richmond. If you guys go, you will see her work all over the dealership. And beyond her studio, Chrissy also brings her painter side to the film and television world, working in pre-production as a scenic painter, which I think beautifully ties into her sensitivity to color, scale, and visual storytelling. So please join me in welcoming Chrissy Cheung. Okay, so, I've seen Chrissy for a long time. I know her for many, many years, but she always struck me as someone who's so quiet. She doesn't talk much, okay? And she's still an introvert, which I love. And yet, as you guys have noticed, that her works are actually quite loud comparatively to her personality. So I find it very intriguing. What do you think? Are you introvert?
I'm quiet sometimes, but I can get talking. I consider myself introspective. I'm thinking about a lot of things. I don't really think how much you talk is really too much about your demeanor, because what you do in your studio is completely different from how you are in public. People have to act a certain way, and I just follow along because I don't really like to be noticed. It's just easier.
Yeah, I find that there's always a pattern that sometimes the personality, it's almost the opposite of their artistic style. And it's very interesting. So that's why I want to point it out. But I hope you get come to talk to today so we can know more about you. Now I'm going to straight get into the subject matter of her work. I know a lot of you guys probably wondering, what am I looking at, right? We call it abstract. There's all types of abstract works. I personally fascinated by her works, especially larger scales like behind us right now. So I remember that when we had a conversation, most of your work is the interpretation of urban landscape, right? So that means there's a lot of movements, there's a lot of plannings, there's a lot of executions, right? But I know that there's more to it, right? They're not just all random, like a lot of people think, abstract, just randomly paint, stuff, colors and scroll paint on canvas, right? So can you walk us through your thought process of, so how does the material, how does the color, how does the scale or the mark making interact in your work?
Okay, so there's a lot of ideas in most of my paintings, and in this one, I jam-packed it. I've lived in 5 major cities in Canada, so that's Toronto, Montreal, Calgary, Vancouver, and Victoria. And so my environment is always buildings and density. And I love density because it means all this stuff is happening. I have been to Saskatchewan, but it's very bare. I can see everything. And I like to think, especially when you look at, have you seen all those windows and there's all those windows? That means each window is a different person's life and something else is happening. So I've always had this like theme of portals, windows. Anyways, if you stack a lot of windows together, it looks like a building. So we're gonna have buildings everywhere. And how you jump through one into the other one, then you have to make a bridge. So in a way, I'm just reconstructing in my mind the density. And so I don't have to look at a city. I know it has to have this many to make it feel dense, and then I need a little passageway to get to the next way. And at the same time, I'm going to contrast. So when I use red cadmium, then I got to use my graphite because I want the red to pop out. And in this painting particularly, I was using dry pigments, which is a little controversial because it could be toxic, but I'm floating it for luminosity. And I want that luminosity to hit you. So how you interpret it is different from someone else who interpret it because people are attracted to different types of shapes and colors. And so I have to make enough shapes that's going to attract everyone. And
do you think you mentioned there's like different, like shapes? Has to be something different right next to it, right? Something like that. It's cannot be repetitive and it has to be interesting.
So I subscribe to Goethe's theory of colors. So he was like yellow and blue. We don't need red because yellow and blue. Yellow was spiritual. Everything was spiritual back then. It's not life. So if you put yellow and blue together, you get green. If you've ever seen those Fruit Loop commercials and they go lime green and then they do a white spot, you see the magenta. So he knew our mind can make magenta. So the whole color wheel is wrong. You don't need the red because your mind can make it up. And we're talking to humans, so like dogs can't see color. So it really is, what can you make up? Although I put it there, the majority of this painting is actually yellow and blue in its derivatives. And this is actually metal. That is cadmium. It's not red. It's metal I put on top. So when I'm playing with all that, I just have to make sure you have enough white space so that your eye detracts, because I still believe in the light source coming in and then coming out through the darkness. Like your eye needs to be able to come out, otherwise it's trapped. It's a labyrinth for your eye, and I want to make sure you have like 5 exits.
So when you talk about urban landscape, right? Like, a lot of your work, for example, this one or those ones that are interpretations of your urban landscape reference, right? So when you pick reference, do you like look at photographs, or if you look at any pictures, or how does it work?
So I don't like to go too much on pictures. I just want to go by feeling, because the real abstractness is the feelings that are not portrayed. I could be a draftsman and do buildings, and I probably wouldn't be that great. But I want the feeling of buildings, feelings of density, and how does that feel? So I'm just looking within me, how I feel when I'm totally crowded. Well,
so that's why we can see, you can almost see, like, it's almost like the kind of shapes, blurry shapes of certain paintings or bridges. We talk about there were a lot of bridges in your paintings, right? And I love that they don't have they don't have the realistic, shape of it, but there's certain references there, right? And then there's the rivers and skies in your paintings, right?
So I'm just doing enough forms so you can relate back to a landscape that is city prompt, because that's my upbringing. That's why.
Other than urban landscape, I remember that. Can you guys believe that she used to be an excellent dancer? And yes, I know, I did not see that one coming either. And a swimmer too, which I'm super jealous. So, is there any reference or inspirations from that part of your life as well, reflecting your painting?
Yes, I consider all my paintings have a lyrical aspect, that there's movement, and that's what's attractive to me because it allows for gesture. I I did a lot of different types of dance and moving shapes. How would I depict that? That's kind of just a natural offshoot of my work, because if a work isn't moving, then it's kind of stale.
Remember the one upstairs? Do you guys see there's a one above the sofa? Right.
So that one's called Super, and I was a provincial swimmer, and it's kind of like if you did a backside, how would that feel? How would that look?
Yeah.
So my abstract art is really about things that are never portrayed. It's like, let's do a backside in the Olympic Stadium. I know it's if we do more images of things that you're just feeling, maybe other people will feel that more, and that's sort of like the base of humanity at art. You have to feel something. There's no relation, there's no connection if you can't feel it. It's just a lot of black and white drawings, but I need to feel it to understand it.
Okay, that's interesting, because I remember that one. If you guys remember, it has this very strong movement in that painting, right? It's almost like an action, and that's why I was asking you. And it's from a swimming experience, right?
Yeah, like I need something to go on to create the pain, but if someone else doesn't see it, maybe they could just still feel the composition. If I started with a blank slate of, I'll just paint, I wouldn't know where to go either. I need to think of an episode or a story to create as well, and that's why I call the pieces having an abstract narrative stuff.
Yeah, so I know that you've been painting for almost 7 years, right? It's been a long time, even though you started like really young. So I only found out recently that she used to paint realistic, right? Like you used to do realism paintings, which I think is very important as a foundation of skill set as an artist. And then you transitioned later into abstract, or in your words, abstract narrative, right? In terms of visual storytelling. Now, can you tell us how did that happen? Why do you think it was necessary as an artist?
Well, all art training, they want you to reference something, and it was easy younger to just get news clippings or magazines and like paint exactly that model, paint exactly that pet, or like look at those flowers, because they will all start you with figure drawing, or like they'll put up pins and you just have to draw. And so the way to get a good mark is to make it look exactly like what it is. But they don't really tell you to deter from it, because then they think you're not listening to it. And actually, my art teacher would put everyone away from me because I was really harsh shading. I'm like, don't fall. It was almost like being ostracized with these like high contrast, like so much graphite that it would come off the page, and intense. So you can kind of get bored of realism. And also, I studied photography at FE, and you can achieve something exact with a camera, so it didn't appeal to me anymore. And abstract just has so many different combinations. Like when everyone says everything's been done, it hasn't been, because you haven't done every single combination. And when you know that you haven't done all the combinations, you want to try all the combinations. Like if you're in sports, you try all the moves, right? Well, in art, there's like a million. So I better try them out before someone like calls me out, because I was an art teacher. People are always like challenging it, and obnoxiously. I was in Montreal. People look obnoxiously challenge you at your exhibition.
Really?
Yeah, because they're from UQAM and I'm from Concordia. And we better have a great answer, because
Okay, I see.
there's different schools of thought.
Yeah,
We're
that sounds so much fun.
really healthy. I better do it in French.
Oh yeah, she speaks French. Yeah. So, side note, how's the RC in Montreal different from Vancouver? Are we too gentle here?
I'm very polite.
I also, yeah, I think
The good thing is when someone's like willing to interact with you and dialogue with you, it's also a compliment, because they took the time to like kind of say something to you.
so does that mean people they don't get offended easily? sings the whole word.
No,
They're more aggressive.
They're more dramatic.
Yeah.
This is more Latin-based cultures.
Okay.
It's okay, I can handle it.
Okay, so later when you have questions, please don't be so gentle because she can handle it.
Well, it's not very good until I know what you're really thinking, and if you have to use certain words, you have to use certain words.
Okay, fair enough. That's interesting. Now, that's earlier, like we talked about how you transitioned into the abstract narrative, right? Do you think as an artist or as a so-called abstract artist, and I'm asking for a lot of artists out there too, especially in the early stage, do you think it's necessary to have certain skill set as like foundation skill set as an artist in order to do abstract?
Well, I think it's preferable because every profession has building blocks. So if you don't know certain techniques, then you won't know how to build your own. Essentially, a professional artist develops their own technique and style. And so it has to come from somewhere, and to say that you don't need to know what the masters were doing 100 years ago is a little bit bold, but also like naive because they did great things.
Yeah. The reason I'm asking because as many of you notice, there are a lot of I call it inspiring artists out there. Let's just say they do a lot of abstract, but and some of them are actually really good. But a lot of them are clearly drive into art abstract right away, right, without certain foundational skill set. What do you think about that?
Well, it goes back to if you want to be contemporary, you have to do something that's never been done. So really, if you go back to realism, it's already been done. So if they want to skip that step, then I guess it's okay, but you will always be challenged for the depth of your work, the vastness, and can you hit exactly what another artist was great for.
That's a great answer. I do think that there is a certain skill set needed in order to develop your own styles, even in abstract, right? Now, that brings us to my second question is, how does your abstract styles evolved in the recent years? Because I know that you have been, she's quite productive as an artist, right? So in recent years, you have developed a massive amount of work, and I've noticed your style has evolved somewhat. Some have realized, some not, right? So can you talk about in terms of the tenseness and the looseness, right? In terms of your recent works, and also the layers of the colors, how did they evolve? And maybe pointed out some of the pieces as a reference, so in that kind of skill set.
So let's just say this is actually an older work, and all the works upstairs are newer. The newer works, I don't outline as much. I used to outline every single object. And that was actually a graffiti technique. The only way to make it defined is they outline everything. And it kind of shows some crispness, but then I realized if I loosen up and have less density in my pigment, it actually has more luminosity. Anyways, it's a little bit of a fine formula. I would say my hand loosened up.
Is that one considered a little bit more loose than the one behind us?
Yes.
Right?
It doesn't have many
outlines, right?
Yeah, I'm also less boxy.
Right. And versus this one that's being sold, as you guys see, the vertical one here, it's definitely more tense and more rigid with a lot of outlines, right?
Oh, that piece, every single shade has a complementary. So it's either a shade, so if there's a circle, there'll be a line right across it, or if there was a red, there'd be orange, green right beside it.
Yeah.
The exact complementary color.
So there's definitely more clear shapes in that one.
Yes.
Comparatively. Yeah. So now also I've noticed there are different levels of transparency in colors and also vibrations. If you guys see like the vibrant colors. So you guys probably noticed the giant piece upstairs, right? It's called Sunset, which I love. Definitely one of my favorite pieces. So that one that we notice, it's definitely more transparent, right? There's less layering in colors. So that's your more recent work.
Yes, because I just wanted to be more simple with the shapes and in a way less distracting for how many places your eye can go.
Okay.
It's a more essential composition.
Okay. So now comes to my question. Does that mean that, because we often say like that the artist, artistic style evolvement often reflects their inner state, right? So does that mean that in the recent years or recently that you become more carefree and less rigid as the inner state?
I like to think I'm a good person.
So it was definitely more tense before. Yeah. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to point it out because a lot of people they forgot that there is a correlation between the art and the artist. Now, I'm also curious. Every artist I know, well, not every, but most of them, they have their preference when they work, right? Some like to, have a glass of wine. Some like to, do some weed and some other substance, right? and some like to work alone. Some like to, work in a different state. What's your preference of atmosphere or environment when you work?
I definitely work alone.
Yeah.
I work with music. I don't use any substance. I would just pass it. It just
yeah. Okay, what kind of music?
It ranges. I like all the singer-songwriter or like atmospheric.
Okay.
I have some favorites, but it's really varied. I have like 1,000 songs in my playlist.
Okay. So how do you keep a flow state as an artist? Because a lot of us, we know that flow state is very important for doing art or any other, creative work.
Well, I call it getting into the zone, and I'm really old now, and you walk into your studio and you gotta be on, because you just think of it like, I gotta get something done. There's not really that much time left.
Okay, so you're more disciplined artist. That's funny, it's more disciplined.
Sure.
Yeah. That's a great quality to have, for sure, yeah. That's great. Now we know what kind of environment that you like to work on. I want to ask you, what's your favorite artist? Could be, alive or passed away or someone that influenced you most.
All-time favorite is Paisley Kandinsky.
Okay.
And then Paisley Kandinsky. And then Anselm Kiefer. And then lately, I don't know what I think.
No worries.
Let's just leave it up to you.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, have you guys noticed there are also a great amount of drawings of hers upstairs and also on the stairway. I personally love her drawings because they look abstract, but then it's almost like there's a deeper meanings to it. Can we talk about what drawings versus paintings, that's differently for you?
So drawings are heavily downplayed. They're actually more important. I call them idea boards because to get to a big idea, you need to do a little sketch. And just holding that little sketch has all the energy and all the thought just in one kind of scribble. It's not a scribble, it was like, it does take less time than a painting, but it holds like the whole formula right in it. So it's a drawing because it's a work on paper, but it's really a little painting.
Okay, so yeah, because there's also colors in it too, right? So people will ask like, the drawings, obviously there's some more blank space, there's just, the piece kind of in the middle, right? What are they looking at? Are they also urban landscape, inspired or movement or action? Like, what are we looking for here?
So a lot of the drawings I call composition because actually Paisley Kandinsky was a big influence and he heard color and he had synesthesia. So while he was painting, like red would actually sound. And even though I don't have this ability, I think that all art should have kind of like a soundscape. And so I'm trying to imagine that at the same time as I'm drawing it. So if they're called composition, it's because I hear something. And that's what it should look visually. And most music doesn't have visual representation. And in the past, I did graphical scores, which is a reference to John Cage, who tried to make a looseness in the actual musical work so that musicians can interpret. And when you understand that, like, all arts kind of interflow, the drawings are the closest to music because they're most pointed, like they're more direct.
Okay, more direct.
Without being in musical notation.
Okay, that's very interesting because, your drawings just definitely gives a little bit more zen energy compared to your paintings that's more dramatic, right? There's more colors and there's more movements in it. Is there any other elements that can be considered as your inspirations when you paint? You know, like what's your thought process like when you wanted to start a piece? Like, is there a urge, or is there something that, you know, something that really inspired you and you wanted to start a new piece?
Well, many things affect me throughout the day, but you kind of like save it for later and you kind of work it out in your piece. Like I don't map out what I'm doing, but I'm working out that idea or feeling into the work. You're exploring at the same time as you're creating, and by doing that, it's original because I haven't done it before.
What's the difficulties or obstacles, you know, that you often encounter when you're painting?
Well, sometimes the composition doesn't balance. The color that you imagined doesn't work with everything else. And so you have to scrap something. And so it's a sacrifice. It's an edit, but it's also like, I really like that piece, but I gotta like white out half of it. And I just spent 3 months on that. It sucks. But what if I just cut it out and use it? And I just...
No? Yeah. Okay. Okay, fair enough. Okay, last question. Also, most important question is not only from me, but also from a lot of people in the art industry is, how do we appreciate abstract art? Like, what is considered a good abstract art? Like, are we looking for color palette? Are we looking for movements or brushworks? Like, what, you know, as I consider you as a very successful, you know, abstract artist. So to your standards, what is good abstract art?
Well, you have to enjoy it. You have to like it. It has to have, amazing composition. There's no real formula, but if it's striking, then it's striking. If you don't like it after 5 seconds, though, that was striking, and then you look away, it's not that good.
Okay.
That's shot fed. Okay. So, if you like the banana thing, well, that's debatable. I believe it's still different for everyone. And
of course,
you just know when something's well done. You know, there's a finish and end. You could talk about it. You could talk about the form. You could talk about the composition. You could talk about the color. You could talk about the concept. It's still just like a real painting. But the subject is a little more innate. So if you know the painter Molinari, he's the one who did like just stripes of color. It took me a long time to understand it. But what he was really talking was, let's say there was like an orange bar and a green bar and a white bar. And so like say, I didn't like any of those colors. Oh, but there was a purple one. And then that came forward, and then all of a sudden it made sense. The purple one would come straight at me. And all of a sudden, that piece actually played. It would like, the other colors would like be in the distance. And so there's a subjective part of abstraction where the color does play a role because everyone reacts different to the same color. And so when that one comes forward to you, you created a different foreground. And the other colors have to play the other roles in the piece, just like a story, like the background actors. So if the other guys aren't playing actors to the primary color, it's not a good story. It's not a good piece. It didn't work for you, but it doesn't mean it didn't work for someone else, right? But you know that how painting is called Voice of Fire. It's just red. But if you're actually in front of it, it's like, I think 19 feet of red. It's pretty impressive. But I just don't want to take it home. So that's
Hi, good point.
I would still say it's subjective, but I know it's a good painting because it was well painted. There's technique.
Okay. Well, thank you for your answer. I think that wrap up like my questions, but I just want to say from all of my heart that your work is something that I do not get bored looking at, right? Because we have this piece here for a while too, and there's so much depth, there's so much colors, there's so much emotions inside that every time when I look at it, there's always something different inside of me that's being triggered. So it's definitely something I will want to take home. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the interview.
Yes. Okay, 2 questions. Okay, we have 2 minutes. So, anyone that wanted to ask her about anything, feel free to speak up. Yes, Rob, please.
People are quite cool. Listing one.
Maybe sure.
Okay. How long do you wait with the piece after you finished to say I've signed it? I'll assign that down.
I wait all the way till the end until I have to show.
Tend to show. Okay. And then the next question is kind of a bizarre one as well, but as a perfectionist, I'm assuming, is that now that you've almost like a musician with a song, oh, I could have changed that word, I could have changed that note. When you see your work, you sit there and go, oh, I would like to change that there, or are you happy with every single piece?
I'm good with them. As soon as I varnish it, I know there's no going back. I like to cheat. I just make a new one later. I'm good with it.
Good, yeah.
Great questions. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else?
I'd like to ask about the notion of dialogue. I shared with you recently. We had to talk about that thing with David Bowie. David Bowie?
David Bowie? Yeah.
And he basically says, don't worry about your audience, just work for yourself. You have a different approach. It tends to be the approach that I find interesting. And I see that evolution again through all these pieces and in the formats that you have, whereas the smaller scale formats where it's the window that we're in front of, and you use opaque paints, and then and obviously a geometric and shapes and completely abstract and palettes. It tends to be most primary, and then your larger pieces. Again, this translucency, and I realized from hearing you that there's been this evolution in your art. And it's that dialogue. How do you find yourself establishing the dialogue with a potential audience, a specific audience? How did that evolve from your smaller, sort of opaque pieces to more translucent, semi-abstract pieces?
So traditionally, you would, if you want that nice aura in the Renaissance, they put like the yellow ochre down. That was a technique. So sometimes I'm like, let's play traditional. I want to do that. It used to glow more because they had different lights. And so every time in a scenario, I'm like, is it going to have sunlight on it, or is it going to have indoor light? I'm playing what they might have. I'm like a film worker. I'm playing for what the lighting will be later. So if I don't figure out opaqueness, it doesn't mean it will be less luminescent because I'm using raw pigment. So in a way, it's experimenting. This one, yes. That one, no. This one, yes. Well, for a bigger piece, you can't put that much more paint. It'll make it heavy. It'll make it crack. I can't risk it. On the smaller ones, you can do it. So that's the way I did it.
Does that satisfy you? Okay, good. Thank you, guys. Last note, I just want to quickly mention her work is going to show until December 6th, and during her exhibition, can I hear, as many of you guys know, that he also do custom framings for artists, for general publics, and he's generously offering 15% off for all the framings during the time of Chrissy's work exhibition. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask him. He frames anything that your heart desires, from 2D, 3D, textiles to anything that you can think of. So thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.